So here are 8 questions to develop a better understanding of Moses Itauma. Question 1. Is Usyk's praise of Moses Itauma a passing of the torch or simply a recognition of exceptional potential? It could be both, but for the first one to be true, for it to be a passing of the torch, Moses Itauma needs to not only become the champion, he needs to become the undisputed champion. And only time will tell if he can become the undisputed champion. However, as things stand today, Moses Itauma has shown through the gym stories and through what he's done in the ring that he is an exceptional potential. So he's already established the second part of the question, but for him to figuratively be that passing of the torch, he has to have that dominance, and that could be anywhere from 2 to 5 years away. But there's so much potential with regards to Moses Itauma. Of course, there's some questions. How does he cope in the second half of the fight? What happens when he's presented more complicated questions or when he deals with more sophisticated fighters? How well does he take a punch to the head? How well does he take a punch to the body? There's a range of questions that still need to be answered before we can say that he is that guy. Question number 2, are critics judging Itauma too harshly because they expect perfection from a developing heavyweight? I think there's a human trait to judge people from a different stance from how we judge ourselves. So when we judge ourselves, we look at context and we look at nuance. When we judge other people, we might judge them from a perfect framework. And I think that the problem is with Moses Itauma is that people are being way too harsh. Like they're saying he hasn't fought anyone. That is not true. He fought Dillian Whyte. He fought Franklin. Both of those people had resumes. Both of those boxers had resumes. Dillian Whyte, even though he's past his best, had a world-class left hook counter, and he fought so many different fighters. He had a competitive fight with AJ. He beat Joseph Parker, a former world champion. He beat Povetkin. He has had a succession of fights with various people. And of course, Franklin went the distance with AJ. He went the distance with Dillian Whyte, and he would have had a massive incentive to do well in that fight, because had he had done well, he would have got bigger paydays. So I think that there is this community that is judging Moses Itauma very harshly, but I don't think this is independent of Moses Itauma. I think all fighters get judged harshly, from Shakur Stevenson to Floyd Mayweather to Joe Calzaghe to Rocky Marciano. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be critics. I guess the question is, are their criticisms valid? And I guess you've got to look at the argument and where it's coming from to be able to make that decision. Question number 3. If Hrgovic takes Itauma into the second half of the fight, what will we learn about Moses Itauma that we have not seen yet? Well, we'll see if he's able to retain his reflexes in the second half of the fight. We'll see if he's able to still be dominant in the second half of the fight. We might see some other tactical nuances from Moses Itauma. We might see some new punch variations. We might see him having to fight in the pocket. We might see his reaction to taking body shots, his reactions to taking an accumulation of punches, and we'll see how he downloads data as the fight progresses. So does he still have the clarity in round 1? Does he have that same clarity when he's in round 7, round 8, round 9, round 10? So potentially we could learn so much about Moses Itauma, but it depends on the context. If he's just beating up his opponent for 7, 8, 9 rounds, that's different from having a competitive affair where you're in the 7th round and it's 3 rounds apiece, or you're in the 7th round, you got knocked down in round 1. So there definitely is context. But yes, we can learn some new things about Moses Itauma. Also, does he carry his speed? Does he carry his reflexes? Does he carry his timing? And does he carry his power? And one of the major assets of Moses Itauma is his feet, his foot speed. Does he carry that speed in the second half of the fight? Question 4. How much context should we apply to Moses Itauma's wins over Dillian Whyte and Jermaine Franklin? Dillian Whyte, great performance. Allegedly, Dillian Whyte was injured. So we can acknowledge the impeccable performance, but also acknowledge the context. Jermaine Franklin, durable fighter, has experience of going 12 rounds with a former world champion and a former world-class contender, and he dismantled him in 5 rounds. That, to me, is a great performance. And he was unable to put Itauma under any considerable pressure. He did catch him with a few punches, but like they say, if you're going to go in the rain, you're going to get wet. But he wasn't able to put him under any sustained pressure or win a round or, really cause any great resistance. So we definitely get some very positive implications from that fight. There was no red flags. Question number 5. Is the Mike Tyson comparison useful, or does it create unnecessary pressure around Itauma? Well, first of all, Mike Tyson was orthodox. Itauma is a southpaw, so that's already a difference. And also they're different type of fighters. Mike Tyson was a vicious fighter. He was a tactical fighter, but he was a brutal, vicious fighter in his prime. I would say that Itauma is more of a tactical fighter, even though Tyson is a tactical fighter because he developed that custom-mata system, and early in his career, he relied predominantly on head movement, and he was just so vicious in the pocket. Itauma has a very different style, so there definitely is differences. The correlation is the dominance. That's the correlation. Mike Tyson dominated his opponents. Itauma is currently dominating his opponents. Is the pressure unnecessary? Well, it depends. Is Itauma carrying that pressure on his shoulders? His team should be working with him to enable him to deal with that pressure effectively. But pressure can cause psychological distress and it can hurt a fighter, but it depends how the fighter is processing that pressure. And the only person who probably knows how that pressure is affecting him is Itauma. But also, let's not forget that being compared to Mike Tyson is a beautiful compliment. Question number 6. Is Itauma really the next British heavyweight superstar, or is he part of a much deeper generation? We don't know. He could be the next British heavyweight superstar. He's shown the ingredients. He's shown that he has the ability, but there's still question marks, and we don't know how he handles adversity. You can be genetically a great fighter, but if you don't have the psychological makeup or the mental toughness, then you might not even become a champion. So we can't say he's the next British heavyweight superstar until we see him react effectively to adversity. And even though the ring is what Teddy Atlas calls the chamber of truth, we haven't seen that level of adversity to determine whether he has a strong mind state. It looks like he has a strong mindset, but we haven't had the complete clarification of that yet. But the implications are very, very good. Question number 7. Should AJ versus Fury remain in Britain for cultural reasons, or does the biggest investment deserve the biggest influence? I guess in a perfect world, where it's about the fans, where it's just about the fans, the fight remains in Britain because it's British fighters. The foundations of those fighters were built in Britain. The rivalry was harvested in Britain, and then it exploded exponentially. But it feels like it deserves to be in Britain. However, in capitalism, generally speaking, the person with the most money wins the argument, or the person with the most money determines, the person with the biggest slice of the pie determines where the fight will go. So I guess in this sense, if the rumors are true, capitalism wins. And finally, question 8. Is British heavyweight boxing entering another golden era, with Itauma simply the latest bus to arrive? Well, it is another era. Like I said before, Frank Bruno was a very recognizable and very popular fighter. It took him 4 attempts to get the title, and big respect, hats off to him. After that came Lennox Lewis, who was arguably the greatest British heavyweight boxer that we've ever seen. But then we had the Tyson and AJ generation, both becoming heavyweight champions, both becoming 2-time heavyweight champions. And now we have Daniel Dubois, a 2-time heavyweight champion. Wardley, a previous heavyweight champion. So in today's context, in today's contemporary times, there are many different British buses that are collecting titles. And Itauma is the latest bus to arrive, but like I said, that bus has the potential to be the most impressive. But we watch and we observe just to see how that journey goes and see if it can arrive at that destination. Quick announcement, I have a free chapter from my boxing book. So click the link below to visit the landing page and get your free chapter. Remember to check your spam/junk folder if you don't receive it. Also, let me know what you think. Constructive feedback is always welcome.